morning and welcome to Alka and Rhea show. And thank you for always tuning in because 80% is showing up for your success. Today, Rhea is going to take over the conversation, but before she does, I want to introduce ourselves. My name is Alka.
My name is Rhea, and
and
welcome
welcome
to
to
our
our
show.
show. Rhea, pass the mic to you.
Thank you, Alka. And today's topic is a continuation from the book of Pace Morby, Wealth Without Cash. So let me share my screen. All right. Just checking in. Are you able to see my screen, Alka?
Yes,
All right.
yes.
So this is from the book Wealth Without Cash by Pace Morby. And to continue, why do people buy real estate? There is a quote from Loop Fiasco. We can't do nothing about the past, but we can do something about the future that we have. So the past is past. There's nothing we can do. However, there's something we can do today and tomorrow. So there are only 5 reasons, according to Pace, that people buy real estate. The 5 reasons are: 1, it's positive cash flow; depreciation; appreciation; 4th, mortgage paydown; and 5th, leverage. Again, first is positive cash flow, 2nd is depreciation, 3rd is appreciation, 4th is mortgage paydown, 5th, leverage. All 5 can help our business. As our business grow, our motivation and portfolio may change. So to break it down even further, first reason is cash flow. This is the first reason why people buy real estate. Cash flow is a major priority. So we make sure there's more money coming in than going out each month. Because then when there's more expenses, it becomes a liability. But if there's more money coming in, then that is called an asset. For investment properties, cash flow comes down to income and expenses. Income and expenses. Cash flow is the amount of profit we bring in each month, or the business bring in each month after. So these are the expenses, right? So first we need to collect all income, and then from that income we have to pay expenses. So that means all operating expenses, and we also have to set aside any reserves for future repairs. So those are called capital expenditures. Cash flow for buy and hold investors. Cash flow is crucial to increase their income. Why? Because it allows people to invest in other properties. Second, it creates a safety net with their expenses, or they can do anything they want with the excess money, the income that they get. Again, if you are buy and hold investors just like I am, cash flow is crucial to increase what? Income, because it allows people to invest in other properties to create a safety net with their expenses. So what that does mean? So because the expenses are unknown, you have, it's called a safe, it's saving for a rainy day. That's what the safety net is. So just in case if it's a rainy day, you're able to pay it because why? You have a safety net for those expenses. Or just you can do anything with the excess money that you have. So Pace, according to the book, Pace lives off the cash flow. So he doesn't touch the principal, he lives off his cash flow. And that's actually good. You let your money work for you, don't touch the principal, and you just live based on what the cash flow is. Now, how do we calculate cash flow? This is very important. Cash flow is not the income, it's more than that. So gross rental income minus all expenses minus cash reserves is cash flow. Again, cash flow is gross rental income. That's the total income. Now you have to deduct all the expenses, and you have to deduct all the capital reserves, the cash reserves. This is for the rainy day. All those big ticket items, rainy day. What are those? It could be your HVAC, your heating and cooling. It could be the roof, right? It could be a sewer repair. Those are big ticket items in terms of expenses. So that's how we calculate cash flow. It's a net of things. So income minus all expenses minus cash reserves is cash flow. So an example is, okay, so let's say you have a property. The income of that property is 1,000. This is just for simplification of our math. So if you have a mortgage, what is mortgage? The debt that you that you got from the bank, right? It's an IOU to the bank. So the mortgage, for example, for this property is 350. Now don't forget the government. The government, we have to pay property taxes. That taxes is 200. Now don't forget to get insurance. The bank, when they lend you money, they want you to get insurance for the property. So insurance is $50. Now property management, for example, because you're a busy doctor or because you're out of state, your property is not where you live. So you have to get the property management, because why? This is not your full-time job. So if this is not your full-time job, or if you're far away, right? If you're the location, if you're far away and you have another job far away, you have another job somewhere else, you have to get a property management. This is usually 10%. This is 10%. So 10% of 1,000 is $100. Now, you also have to factor in vacancy. Just because somebody is paying your rent, that you don't factor in vacancy? No, you have to factor in vacancy, because you're always not 100% full. So out of the 12 months, you could have 2 months of vacancy. So for that, right, you have to consider that, an asset becomes a liability becomes an asset. What do I mean? An asset meaning you have a tenant. Sometimes, even though you have a tenant, that can also be a headache. If you have a no tenant, that becomes a liability, because all these expenses, mortgage, property taxes, insurance, property management, repairs, they all come from your pocket now. That's why it's a liability. Now, that's why you factor in vacancy. For this one, it's also 10%. So that's $100 per month. Now, repair reserves. So if you don't have anything broken right now, praise the Lord. But it doesn't mean that you won't have something break down tomorrow, 1 month from now. So that's why we got to have those capital expenditures or repair reserves. That's also 10%. Now that's 100. Now you tell me, hey, Rhea, can I decrease on vacancy? Can I go up on repairs? Yes, this is only, an example, a guide. You can go down on the vacancy. You can go up on the vacancy. So these numbers would change. So if we do this math now, 1,000, which is your rent, minus the mortgage of 350, minus the property taxes of 200, minus your insurance of 50, minus your property management of 100, minus your vacancy of 100, minus the repair reserves of 100. Now, 100 is your cash flow per month. $100 is your cash flow per month. Now, let's further analyze. If you want a deal with only, this is $100 per month. That's $100. That's not 150. That's $100 per month. If you want a deal with only $100 per month in profit, you are thinking more than just cash flow. What that means, what the book is saying, is that 100 per month of cash flow is not enough. It is not enough to go through all this headache, to go through all this up and downs. You actually want to have more than 100 cash flow per month. Others would want $400 of cash flow per month. But it is really very challenging at this time. It's because of inflation, prices are hot. to get $400 of cash flow per month is actually very hard right now. So what Pace was saying, if you want a deal with only 100 per month, then it is just more than cash flow. There's something behind the reason why you bought this property. One, you could have one, either it is a sentimental value, right? Sentimental value. This was probably your own house before. Second, or it's because it's close to your home, right? Close to your house. It's an adjacent property to your house. Then that's why you're buying it, right? Or third, you have a family member that lives in that neighborhood. And because you visit your family member, it's also nice to have a home beside your family member, for example, your parents, and then you can check in your parents and check in your property. So that's what he means, is that if you are getting a cash flow 100 per month, there must be more than just cash flow. It could be that this is, you probably owned this before, your parents' house, and you're buying it for sentimental reason. It is close to your home, or you could have a family member living there. There's other reasons aside from cash flow. That's what that means. So there are some potential problem in this case that would come from any unexpected increases in expenses. This is very, very true. Expense can just creep up. You don't have any control on the expense, especially with what the government is doing. So it could be, so this increase in expenses could be from missed rent, a tenant turnover. Missed rent, that's very easy, meaning your tenant failed to pay a month or 2 months or 3 months, then we're screwed over. Tenant turnover, it is when the tenant moved out, right? Tenant moved out, or you evicted the tenant. These are called tenant turnover. These are the repairs that you have to do when the tenant moved out or you evicted the tenant. Now, increase in expense, again, vacancies. And then what did I say? Increase in property taxes, increase in property insurance. So these are unexpected increases in our expense. So you have to factor that in, because $100 is just not enough. Therefore, $100 of cash flow per month is never enough. It's not enough. Unless, I guess, like what the book is saying, it's just more than cash flow that you're buying it. Sentimental reasons, family member, or it's just beside your home. So you can improve our cash flow over time. And this is how? So what that means is we can increase our cash flow. That's improving our cash flow. How? By increasing the rent. Now, because there's a lot of vacancy right now, there's a softening of the market. What does that mean, softening of the market? Increasing income, increasing rent is a challenge right now. What does vacancy mean? What does softening of the market means? That means that there's actually more supply. There's more supply of the houses. Why? Either because the Fed, the ICE, right? Illegal immigrants left and they vacated your property. And then there's also like legal immigrants. Such as, for example, refugee program, okay, that used to live in the property, and because Trump blocked this one, so now you don't have any more, you don't have any more tenants. So that's why there's increase in vacancy and there's softening of the market. And it's true, there's softening of the market all throughout the USA. So this right now, increasing rent is a challenge. Okay. Next, to continue the book, increasing cash flow over time is through good long-term tenants. Good long-term tenants. But what that means is because they stay there over time, long-term, right? Could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. then you can increase their rent. Good, because they're paying you. Now, you can increase cash flow over time because you are doing preventative maintenance. What does that mean? You're not ignoring repairs, you're actually fixing it. So by fixing the necessary preventative maintenance, that increases your cash flow. Because if you ignore the repairs, that would increase 100% your expenses. Or you can increase cash flow over time when you refinance. What does that mean when you refinance? When you refinance, you only refinance when the interest rate goes down. Goes down. And they usually recommend interest rate of more than 2%. So if the interest rate goes down by more than 2%, then it's good to think of refinancing the property. And that's how you increase your cash flow. Now, in the end, investing in real estate is all about the numbers. Cash flow is and will always be a major factor in how we do business. So the second reason, there are 5. This is the second reason. It's called depreciation. Depreciation is the second reason why people buy real estate. And it is asset depreciation through tax benefit. You did not lose money. It's just you got a depreciation through tax benefits of how the assets wear over time. There's this thing called wear and tear. Okay? Wear and tear are tangible properties. So a rental property owner used depreciation to deduct from purchase price improvement costs come during the tax season. Here in America, in USA, this is sometime in April. So depreciation is your purchase price minus the improvement cost. That's the depreciation. And this is, you'll usually get it when you file your taxes. Depreciation begins as soon as the property is available to use as a rental. So for example, you bought a property today, which is February 16, 26, and you advertise it on the same day. You advertise it today, February 16, 26. Then you can get the depreciation right now. The depreciation is February 16, 2026. Investors can deduct the cost of buying the improvement of the rental property, but rather than taking a large deduction at the end of the first year, an investor can use depreciation across the lifespan of the property. So what does this mean? So this is for newbies. This may be a little bit confusing to you. So there is a thing called cost segregation. I pay for this. People pay for this cost segregation. So this cost segregation, and with Trump's policy, there's also what we call 100% bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation. So a lot of investors, they actually do the cost segregation. And with Trump's policy, if you bought properties last year, you can get 100% bonus depreciation. So this is what pays mean. The cost of buying, the cost of improving a rental property, you can get a large deduction during the first year when you bought it. So if you bought the property last year, you get a very large deduction for your 2025 taxes through a thing called 100% bonus depreciation and cost segregation. Now, some people do not have to do this cost segregation and 100% bonus depreciation where they get the deduction on the first year, but they can do this depreciation across the lifespan. So over 27.5 years. They don't have to take it right away, right? They just take it over 27.5 years. The IRS or Internal Revenue Service calculate most U.S. residential property depreciating at 3.636% each year or 27.5 years. Now you'll say, what is the benefit for taking it right now, first year, versus waiting for 27.5 years? Now, why people take it during the first year? Because they get the tax break, and a big tax break right away. So that means you let your money work for you again right away. Whereas if it's over 27.5 years, so a little bit of money every single time, every year. And so for some people, it's too slow. They want their money to work right away, so they want to take the deduction on the first year. So that's the importance, that's the significance of this phrase here. So again, the IRS calculates most of the residential properties depreciating at 3.63% each year for 27.5 years. So every single year, you're getting 3.636% each year. So that's really very low, over 27.5 years. According to the IRS, a home is depreciable when, okay, there are four criteria. A home is depreciable when you own the property, including through debt. When you use the property in your business as an income producer, it cannot be a hobby. The hobby does not produce income. So it has to be an income producer. It has to be an asset. It cannot be a hobby. It has to be an income producer. When the property has a determinable useful life. So that means there's a wear and tear to it. It is not forever. There's a useful life. And when the property is expected to last for more than 1 year. Now we contrast it to the land. This does not apply to the land or even landscaping. It cannot be used for land or even landscaping. Land cannot be used, so it does not depreciate. Why you say that? Why it is like that? Because the land always is forever, right? I mean, unless the land sinks down into the earth, then you won't have a land. But land is always there. But the lumber, the wood, it's not writing. Okay, with the wood, the toilet, the roof, okay? There's a life to this. There's a determinable life to this. There's a wear and tear to this. So that's why you can depreciate wood, toilet, roof, anything inside the house you can depreciate. But the land, you cannot depreciate the land. You'll always have the land. So that's what it means. Land cannot be used, so it does not depreciate. So to estimate depreciation, you have to determine the basis of the property. Again, basis is another word, right? Basis is the cost to acquire the property, which includes the legal fees, your lawyers, your CPA, recording fees, right? Your title, your surveyors. So that's included in the basis. Then we have to separate the cost of the land and the cost of the building. We have to separate them. Once this is done, you can start to determine the value of the property and make any needed adjustment. So the land, you cannot depreciate it. The building, you can. So we have to determine what is the cost of the land and what is the cost of the building. Now, this is done professionally. So you need to, find out your appraisers, your CPA, right? Appraisers, your CPA to do all this thing. This is just for us information, but this is not this is not what I do. This is for professionals to do it. So now we can start to determine the value of the land and make any needed adjustment. Or cost segregation companies, they also do that too. All right, engineers, wherever you're at in your business, look for the expenses to help us calculate the cost, so we can keep more money in our pocket. Okay, so reason number 3 is appreciation. Appreciation, right? The value goes up. This is when the value of the property goes up over time. We need time, over time. It does not happen tomorrow. It does not happen today. It does not happen in 2 months, 3 months, 1 year. It happens over time. That means several years. For a property owner, an increase in value, the profit would go up upon future sale. Okay, over time. This is appreciation. We need over time. So what that's mean? Over time, a property owner has an increase in value, which means it increases in profit when they sell it, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, because that's what appreciation is. Increase in value over time. Not tomorrow, not 1 month from now, over time. In some ways, when we do a real estate deal, we are dealing with future evaluation of the property, just as much or even more than the current valuation of the property. This is not a guaranteed number. So you'll say, oh, your property will appreciate in 10 years by 2 times. What the book says, this is not a guaranteed number. Two times is not a guaranteed number, but it's something to track over time. And that's why it's called an investment. Why? Because there's risk. It may double, it may not double, or they may not even be an appreciation because of, the location may be bad, economy may be bad, the market may be bad. That's why it's called an investment. Appreciation means you are keeping up with the market or improving the home even beyond the normal local standards. So what does that mean, improving the home? So for example, if you have a kitchen that's built in the 1960s and you improve it, you did some renovation, and you brought it to modern, which is 2025 or 2026, then improving that home, you would have appreciation. Again, this is not a fast and hard rule because, people improve their home, but because it's in a bad location or just because of the economic matters, right, of the country, it doesn't mean that you improve something that you're going to appreciate, that the money that you put into the property would appreciate. There's a lot of factors to be considered. But generally, if you hold it over time, right, over time, then you will get the appreciation, especially if it's in a great location. The average appreciation varies tremendously based on factors such as, again, location. Very important. Location. Housing market. Right now, the housing market is not good. Now, the house condition. So if you improve, if you did repairs, right? Because the house has a wear and tear. What does that mean? They break down at some point in time. There's a wear and tear. So if you keep up with the repairs, if you improve on the house, then you're going to get the appreciation, provided that the housing market of your country is good. So again, based on factors such as location, housing market, the house condition. So the late 2022, the average appreciation, so 2022 is during, after COVID. Everything was cheap at that time, after COVID. But then the interest rate increased 11 times. 11 times. Never in the history did the U.S. government did that, okay? the powers to be did that. So according to the book, in late 2022, the average home appreciation is 2% per month, or around 14.5 over a year. But some years, according to Pace, according to the book, you'd be lucky to see even just 4% over 1 year. You'd be a lucky person if you see any appreciation, 4%. If our house is worth 200,000 purchase, and then the market went up, then based on this, right, your appreciation, if the housing value is 225,000 and you purchase it for 200,000, then your appreciation is 25,000, or it's a 12.5% increase of the money that you put in. 12.5% increase. How did we get that? So the value now is 225 minus the value when you purchase it, 200. So your appreciation is 25,000. Now, according to the book, we can force appreciation by, there are several ways to force the appreciation, by making improvements to the property that increases its value. Again, improvements, interior upgrades like the kitchen, the bathroom. So you do some renovation, interior upgrade. Exterior upgrades could be the landscaping, right? The yard, you did something to it. Energy efficiencies could be solar. You put solar. Increased square footage, that means you added a house to an existing house, right? So these are ways to force the appreciation. So we did an improvement on the interior and exterior. We implemented energy efficiencies, and we increased square footage, either by adding another building to the property. Unless we are looking to tap into the gained economy, a gained equity. What that means is, so if you put money down and your value of the property increase over time, you have equity in your property. Now, because you force appreciation, that means that your appreciation could be from 25,000, could be 45,000 at some point over time, right? Over time. So if you did not tap on this, unless we are looking to tap into gain equity, if you did not use this, then you can do the forced appreciation. But if you use this, then you cannot tap into the gain equity, because you've already used it up. So Pace is saying, unless we are looking to tap into the gain equity, then we should be able to force the appreciation. And he said, how can we tap into the gain equity? By refinance. That's how we do it. Actually, there's two ways of tapping into gain equity. First, let's talk about refinance. What is refinance? This value, the gained equity, only matters when we plan to resell the property and cash out. Again, the value, which is the gain equity, only matters when we plan to resell the property and cash out. Because why? If we still hold the property, if we own the property, we don't really care what the refinance value is, because we still own it. Now, if you want to take out that money and you're doing a cash out refi, then that gained equity, right? You value this more, the gained equity that's trapped into your home. Why? Because, for example, the gained equity, like I said, initially it was 25,000, your appreciation. And after doing all the forced appreciation, your gained equity is now, your gained equity from 25,000, it went up to, let's say, 50,000, right? Then this matters. This matters when you're doing a cash out, because why? That 50,000, that $25,000 difference, why 25? 25 plus 25 is 50, right? That means you're able to take more cash out. So more cash out money. So that's why it matters when you're doing a cash out. But if you're not doing a cash out, it doesn't really matter because you still own it. So again, gained equity is cash out by two ways. One is if we refinance. So gained equity, we can cash out by two ways. One is if we refinance, you still own the property. Second is if we sell the property. Now you won't own this anymore because you're selling it. So there's two ways to cash out, to take out, okay, the gained equity. One is refinance, you own it. Second, you sell it, you're able to get the gained equity from there. So reason number 4, mortgage pay down. Not only are investors earning cash flow, their rental income is paying down the mortgage of the property. So first, they're earning cash flow, and second, they're paying down the mortgage of the property. That's called mortgage pay down. So when you have an asset, not a liability, you're earning cash flow and it's paying down your mortgage. So let's compare mortgage pay down to cash flow. If our goal is financial freedom, we are going to need deals that are cash flowing. Okay, so if we want financial freedom, we need deals that are cash flowing. Right now, like I said, cash flow right now, cash flowing properties right now is a challenge, right? It is a very big challenge because it is a challenge right now. It still exists out there, but it is challenging everywhere because why? Of the softening of the rental market. That means there's a lot of vacancy, higher vacancy. There's more supply than demand. And then you have high expenses, which includes your, personnel, your staff, right? You have your increase in property taxes. You have increase in your insurance. You have an increased cost in insurance. And then you have an increase, a very high increase on your debt. Interest, when it comes to interest, especially if you have floating rates, or you borrowed using the line of credit. So that's why the cash flow right now is a challenge. So if our goal is to crowdsource our retirement, then cash flow is less significant in the beginning. And we can have renters who simply pay down our mortgage. Now, a lot of times I feel like, if we do this, right, the renters just pay down the mortgage and we don't do a lot to the property because there's a lot of expenses. I feel like the renters here will suffer because we don't take care of the property that much. Because a lot of the money that comes in just goes to pay down the mortgage, just goes down to pay the expenses. So if our goal is to crowdsource our retirement, then cash flow is less. See, the cash flow is less. So when the cash flow is less, it's very hard to take care of the property. It's hard to take care of the property, right? And the renters would suffer because there's less cash flow. You cannot fix things. So while we break even or close to it for the first few years, what he was saying, or even when we break even or close, or not be negative. Break even, according to Grant Cardone, is already negative, even for the first few years. And this is a lot of times, when you're a newbie, you're a new investors, you don't know a lot. So either you're break even or even negative the first few years. Maybe most likely it's going to be even more negative, because why? The cash flow is less, right? And the expenses are all going up. So it's more on the negative side of things, not really breaking even. Now, even minimal cash should grow over time. Minimal cash should grow over time. Our goal is to focus on appreciation and raise the rents with the market. So, for example, if you have a property that's, for example, was renting at $500, let's say $1,500, okay? And you have not raised the rent in 5 years, you have to, and the current market is at 3,000. Okay? So our goal is to focus on appreciation and raise the rents to the market. So if the rent is only 1,500 and the current market rent is 3,000, then you now need to increase your rent probably to 2,000. Why not 3,000? Because you probably have not improved on the property. So you cannot bring it up to 3,000. So probably you can raise it now to 2,000. So our goal is to focus on appreciation and raising rents with the market. Because if it's a property, especially if it's an investment, you have to raise rent because the next buyer will determine it based on your rent, and expenses. So that's just one of the things. So that's why you got to raise the rents in order also to take care of the property. So if you cash flow is $100 per month in the first year, we should make $125 in the second year. Look at what Pay said. In the second year, you have to already increase by 25%. You see that? 25, 100 to 125 from first year to now second year of 125. After a few decades, our cash flow will increase. A decade is 10 years, okay? He said after a few decades, our cash flow will increase, mortgage will be paid off. So yes, so in America, there's 10 years, there's 20 years, there's 30 years, and it's somewhere in between. So after a few decades, 30 years, then your mortgage will be paid off. Once mortgage is paid off, we no longer have that bill. No more interest and no more principal payment. So you have no more mortgage. That means, ka-ching, ka-ching, meaning cash flow will increase. More money into your cash flow now, because mortgage is one of the biggest expenses. One of the biggest expenses when you have a property. One of the biggest ticket items, biggest expenses, if not the biggest expenses, aside from taxes and insurance. These are the three biggest ticket items. Well, except for if you have a capital expenditure, then that's also another big expense there. Or, so cash flow will increase over time, or we can sell the property and cash out the total amount. You either refi or you cash out by selling. So reason number 5, leverage. A very deadly term and a very nice term too if you play it right. When we buy the property, we are building leverage for ourselves and for our business. If we are serious about apartment business, it's not crazy to build assets worth $50 million. High-level sellers will seller finance. High-level sellers will seller finance space. So what does that mean? The bank of pace is the seller. The bank of pace is the seller. Because why? A lot of times those owners don't have any more mortgage. So seller financing. So high-level sellers will seller finance space major projects because of the equity he already has. This means he does not have to technically refinance the property, which he can use to buy more properties, or which he can use the property as a collateral to acquire even more properties. So that's what leverage is. Leverage is borrowing money and you need a collateral. And that collateral could be your other houses. Okay? That's the use of the leverage. You borrow money and your collateral could be other houses or could be your tools and equipments. If you have a small business, if you have for example, a dump truck and any other tools, you can use that as a collateral. So hopefully that is my topic today. You learned something from this talk from the Rhea and Alka show. Let me know what in this lecture did you learn from today's topic? Share it.
Yes, Rhea, you know what? This is really good. Okay, so you talked about hobby.
Mm.
So you said hobby doesn't make money. Can you expand more on that? What do you mean by
Oh, sure.
hobby doesn't make money? Like a hobby
So
business or
yeah, so some people collect cars, right? That's their hobby.
mm,
Some people collect cars, which are very expensive cars, and they use it as a tax write-off. These expensive cars when they buy it, but it's just a collector's item. Their intention is not really to sell it to make money to income. Remember in the book they said about income producing. It's
yeah.
not producing any income. So you
Mm,
cannot get any tax deduction from those cars when you purchase it. So that's what it means by hobby. When you have a business, you're serious about making income. So either
yeah.
you use that expensive car as a one, to buy, to buy and sell, right? Or two, you use it as a to attract, like an advertisement, to attract people so that they will do business to you. Third, you use it as a transportation. You actually use that expensive car to tour your guests to either, to your property or, use it for racing. But whatever you do, if it's a business, you have to have income. A hobby does not produce income. A hobby only creates expenses and not produce any income. So that's the
Right.
difference
Mm,
between having a business. Business is where your intention is to produce income. A hobby, your intention is not to produce income. So those are the two separate things.
right. Okay. Okay. And so, anyone who wants to, because I think that's the differentiation also, if you're looking to get into investment, right? I would say one of the best ways to getting into investment, you do like buy and hold, is to identify your local area
Mm-hmm.
and identify your local area, your rental income. What's a rental? Do comparables, correct? Do comparables of what's going on in that area, and also like study, learn about real estate investing. What do you need to do? How do you go about it? And also, like, you mentioned, so, this is what I would say that people, that's what they need to do, right? To identify what's happening in your local area so that you get firsthand information. So if you're looking into like renting, right? Then when you do comparables as to what's the rental income going in that area, then that's how you can do it. Like, you talked about you can increase the rental income, but you can only increase the rental once you have appreciated, you've done something to the property, correct?
Yes, that's one of the ways is if you've done any improvements, then yes, you can increase the, you can increase the income. But you have to consider location is also very important too. So for example, if your property, your asset, right, your rental income is in front of a big, gigantic, employer such as a hospital, you may not even do anything just because just because location is great, the other, surrounding your market have increased in rent, your rent, even without doing anything, will also increase because the market has increased in terms of its rent. Just because your location is great, you don't have to do anything. You can increase your rent without doing anything, without doing any improvements. If you have not
Mm.
the rent and your location is perfect, yes, you can compete with the other markets out there by raising your rent. Yes, without doing anything. And how do I know it? Because I've done it.
Yeah, I know you've done it. You've got properties near the hospitals and
Mhm.
right?
What
So
you
yeah, look,
dictates is the demand, right? So if there's a demand and the market is there, they've increased in rent. So if the demand is good, it's high, then yes, you can increase the rent without doing any improvements.
right. And then also how people can go about and learning about real estate investment, take courses, take courses, learn about, real estate investing. It's not for everybody. Not everybody can do it. But, if you want to, that is what I would suggest. Go take courses, learn about real estate, learn about investing. What is it? What do you need to do and what does it need to be successful in real estate investing? As I said, not anybody can do it, not everyone can do it, but if you want to, learn, because doing your due diligence about anything, about any business that you want to get into, there's always risk, like Rhea just mentioned. There's always risk in any business that you get into. So but Rhea, that's all, that's really good. And also, you talked about refinance, which I just made a note of. So when it comes to refinancing,
Mm-hmm.
what is the advantage of refinance? And what's the advantage of having a mortgage? Now, um, I can just share a little bit about when I was, investing in a property that I bought, my first one. Um, I had a mortgage on that one. It was a 30-year mortgage. Now, what is the advantage of having a mortgage? Is there an advantage? What's the disadvantage? So, what is the upside and downside of having a mortgage? As I had a mortgage on that, it was a 30-year mortgage, and I was thinking, oh my God, 30 years. But anyway, explain to us what is the advantage, the upside and downside of having a mortgage, and also refinancing. What is the advantage?
So every person has a different risk risk tolerance, right? So some people
Yeah.
with cash who are gifted with a lot of cash, they don't
Uh-huh.
have to get a mortgage. They can just buy it outright with their cash. So they can sleep better because now they don't have to think about the mortgage payment every month. Like I said
Right.
earlier, mortgage is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, expense that you have to deduct from your rental income. So
Yeah.
mortgage, the advantage of that is, for example, if you don't have a lot of cash right now, right, then you can go to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Banker, I want to buy a property. I only have, let's say, for example, the house is 100,000. I only have 20,000. for down payment. Can you put in 80,000? Then yes, the bank will qualify you. If you qualify, then yes, the bank will say, yes, come on in. Let's talk more. So one, if you're cash strapped and you want to buy a property, right? Then using leverage through banks, using other people's money, that's leverage, using the bank, that's when you borrow money from the bank, that's called mortgage now, or it could be a line of credit, but it's a debt, right? Then you can buy a property. That's one of the advantages. You can buy a property with only 20,000 down. So you'll own the property 100% with only, 20% down payment. So
Yeah,
that's
but you still have to pay off the bank, but you still have to pay
over
it.
time, right? Over time, as long as you have a job, right? You're able to pay the bank every month, right? And now you're able to buy the property. But then you only need 20,000. So that's one of the things. You don't have to wait forever. You don't have to wait 10 years, 20 years until you've amassed 100,000. You can buy now, if you're approved by the bank, a house now with a 20,000 down payment, right? So that's one of the advantages of having the mortgage. Second, for investors is through leverage. So if you have $100,000, right? So 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. If you have $100,000 of cash, and if you want to buy a lot of properties and you're an investor, you say you have, and just for example purposes, $100,000 each houses. There's like 5 houses that's worth 100,000. So instead of using your 100,000 to purchase one property, which is 100,000, you can buy all 5. Imagine you can buy all 5 with using the 100,000. How do you do that? You're using your 20,000 leverage, right? 20,000 leverage. You're getting a mortgage from the bank to buy the first property, to buy the second property, to buy the third property, to buy the fourth property, to buy the fifth property. Now you've just multiplied your number of properties because you use a mortgage. Instead of 1, you're able to get 5 properties with the use of mortgage. So that's another, a positive for having a mortgage. Now, your question next was refinance.
Refinance, yeah.
So what is the significance, the importance of refinance? So let's say you've owned the property 20 years, okay? You bought it for 100,000. Now the property is 1 million, okay? I'm just giving you examples for the numbers. $1 million.
Appreciated.
Yes, yeah. Over 20 years, right? Because it's in a very nice location, strategic location. That's why it's $1 million. Now, refinancing is when you go to the bank and say, hey, Mr. Banker, my property appreciated to $1 million now. I want to tap the equity that's in there, the gained equity that you have in the house, which is 1 million minus 100. You have 900,000 trapped into that house. You want to use that. So the way you can get that are 2 ways. One is refinance. You can pull that 900,000 out, or second, you sell it. That's the other way you can get that trapped equity, that gained equity over 20 years time, is if you sell it. But the best way is to refinance because you still own the property, and now you have 900,000 that you're able to tap from that gained equity just by owning it for over 20 years. So that's refinance. You're able to cash out, extract the money that's trapped in the property over a period of time.
Okay, but I just want to learn, and I think I think it's always good. So refinancing. So say I that's what I want to do hypothetically, right? So I could just go to the bank and I could just say like,
Mr. Banker.
right, but I feel that my property is probably increased in value. And then what would they say? Would they say anything to me, or what would they?
What would be more powerful too is if you have market valuation of your property, and you'll say to the banker, hey, Mr. Banker, I had my property appraised Here it is. It is 1 million worth. I bought it, 20 years ago. I bought it for 100,000. It now appraised for 1 million. I'd like to do a cash out refinance. So you can pull up to, 900,000. If it is indeed 1 million, you can pull that 900,000 out of your house, or 800,000.
Right. And so would that be like every month I could do that? Or
No.
is it limited time?
No. So if you're pulling it out, depending on how you structure it, if you're pulling it out one time, right? So you can get it one time, but now you have to understand, if it's you're doing like a mortgage, right? So then you will owe the bank $1 million, because you're doing a cash out refinance. You're taking out the money. So that's one time. Or the other way, if you don't want to do it one time, you can do like a line of credit. So for example, you want to buy another property that's only costing 100,000, and the line of credit is 800,000. So you're only using 100. So you're left with 800 minus 100. You're left with 700,000 in the line of credit that you have not used. You only use 100. That's the overtime. So 2 months from now, you see another property that's 100,000. Then you can go get that 100,000, the second 100,000 from that property. Only when you use it, it becomes, you have to pay the interest only when after you use it. If you have not used it, then there is no interest. If you've used it, then the interest is only depending on the amount of money that you pull out. So there are several ways. You can either take it lump sum, take all the 800,000, or you get it like a line of credit where you only use it, 100,000 here, 100,000 next month, 50,000 next on the third month. So it can be done in different ways.
Right, but still with a line of credit, you still have, it's an interest. You still have to pay them back.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's right. You have to pay them because
so just like with anything in understanding what you're saying, just like with anything, if people want to get into the investment side, but so refinancing just means that you're taking out the money, that equity. Yeah, exactly, in your property. You're taking out the money, but still on the flip side, on the downside, it's an interest. It's an interest. It's like a debt.
Oh yeah, right.
You still have to pay. You still have to pay them.
Right. You have to pay because the bank is giving you money, right? And your collateral is your home. You still have to pay the principal and the interest
Right.
that the bank provided you when you took out the cash out refinance. Yes, you have to pay that. Right.
Exactly. But anyhow, it was such a great learning. I mean, I just took a ton of notes, and I'm sure you all did as well, took a ton of notes. But yeah, so absolutely. So if you want to, just like we said, real estate is not for everyone, but there's always risk in any business that you get into. So weigh the risk. And the best way to always is to do your due diligence in your local area, local market, see what's happening, and do comparables when it comes to the rental. If you're planning to rent your property out, do the comparables, because in this way, when you do comparables, you're going to get inside knowledge, and knowledge is power, but knowledge is also powerful when we implement and we learn as much as possible. So thank you always for joining Rhea and I on Alka and Rhea show, and we will see you the same time, same place come tomorrow morning. Make the rest of the day the best of your day, and we will see you soon. Bye for now.
Bye.